So we continue our limud of Mizmor Shir Liyam Shabbos. This is the second parak Beis, right? We began already speaking about Mizmor Shir, how it's different from the others, what that difference has to tell us about Shabbos, and what Shabbos really is. We said Shabbos is really the Kedusha of Olam Haba already, right? Shabbos is mamish. It is Olam Haba infused into our experience of Olam Hazeh. That's the inyan of Shabbos. Here we take a look at the next parak, Mizmor Shir Liyam Shabbos. So he says, Hisnoitzitzos HaShabbos Shala Asad Lavai, a spark of the Shabbos Shala Asad Lavai, that great Shabbos to come, when the whole world is charav, right? But charav not in a terrible way, like it's destroyed. It's a completely new world, something else. So he says, Va'atan avar heichon mizmor shir liyam haShabbos ha'oisik b'snoisus haShabbos Shala Asad Lavai mei iruba b'chol Shabbos v'Shabbos gam b'zman hazeh. Now we're going to understand how through this prism, like it's almost like a little window, through the window of this parak called Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbos, the light of Olam Haba is shining down into our world, into Olam Hazeh, every single Shabbos. How does that work? Where do we see that in the Mizmar itself? So he says like this. Rabbi Yehuda, thanks for joining. Great to see you. So he says, Ki ikra Shabbos hi emun Hashem yisbarach. The main thing, like we've been learning for many, many months now, is that Shabbos is all about emunah. Shabbos is emunah encapsulated. Ukdekos of Ramban, like the Heilige Ramban writes, and in some sense, it's a taste of the ultimate experience of Elikus, of Olam Haba, where it's not even like emunah, like you sort of have to believe, you just see it. It's chush, right? It's revealed, it's neskala, that there is nothing else but Elikus, right? Ein oid milvadai. Kasher tia ha'emunah brura, at that time when the emunah is absolutely clear, v'hakol yavinu b'chol u'befrat, every person will know on the level of the collective, and uprat, and every single detail, mimaisa bereshis, of creation, both in the realm of space, right, like things that exist, and in the realm of time, everything that unfolded throughout history, whether in the collective of nations and peoples, whether in each person's own personal life, in this Gilgul, in previous Gilgulim, everything. Echakol haya b'hashgacha gedola. How every single teeny tiny detail was b'hashgacha. Was HaKadosh Baruch Hu overlooking that person's life down to the detail of every person's own life and the unfolding of the world, as we're going to see. Everything. And that's going to be the R of Al-Asad Lavai, which, right, Haida'a, the ability to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mentioned it last week also. I mentioned it last week that Rabbi Nachman says, Kala karbanos betelin la'asad lavai, all the other karbanos, which we translate as, in this context, means of getting close to Hashem, like a karban, right, milashon kirov, right, to come close, are going to be nullified. There's only one karban that's left, and that's the karban taida. That's the means of getting close that is wrapped up with thanking Hashem. Because thanking Hashem is the realization that every single thing that happened, kol mada avid rachmana, letav avid, which at great shining moments of our experience in Olam Hazeh, you can maybe believe that a little bit and you give yourself chizik with it. But imagine seeing that in a way that we can't even grasp, we can't even understand. We're talking about the worst of the worst of the worst of dynamics that have played out in this world. It's not even possible for us to imagine a way that the Holocaust can be flipped. Like in what context could that be? In what way? Anachnu lo yodim, achshav. Maybe with emunah we say we believe that somehow this is part of a plan, but that's the extent that we can go without being absolutely cruel and crude, right? La'asad lavi, this is a thing where you say baruch ha'toiva ha'metiv on every single facet of life, everything. Echakol haya b'hashgacha gedola k'may shekasa b'mizmar zeh, and that's why in this mizmar, which like we learned last week, the whole mizmar, you can't make reference to Shabbos in the mizmar. Why? Because the mizmar is the Shabbos. The mizmar is Shabbos, right? You said Raza de Shabbos, Ihi Shabbos. Did anybody have that kavanah? I'm just curious. Did you experience mizmar? Because I know that I did. Like I've been experiencing it differently.
Shabbos, I never appreciated, like I know because obviously Perry Pinchik, the Chazon Shtickle, from
exactly.
Sometimes I always say, and I myself go to, I always talk. The biggest problem that people have is they don't actually understand what they're saying when they're davening, and that's it. The same as Pesukah Zimmer. They don't say people saying to understand what they're saying. If they understood what they were saying, it'll be all davening will be different. And even someone like myself, when I'm working a lot on that, even something as simplistic as Rosh Hashanah the Shabbos, what actually?
Right, we don't think about it.
You say Rosh Hashanah, you don't actually what are you actually saying?
changes the whole experience.
The whole thing changes.
The more you know, the more you feel. That's my whole motto. The more I want Yidden to know more, I want to know more. Not stam to know it, because I want to feel more. So I want others to feel more. And that's that's also true. And Chanami. It's a bit the more you know, the less you know. The more you know, the more you feel. The less you feel. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that now. I don't know if the less you feel, the more you feel, the more you feel, the less you feel. It's getting a bit complicated, but this is mamish it, right? To feel in the mizmar that whatever it is that we're saying in this mizmar is mamish saturated with the ar of la'asad lavai. K'maisha kasab mizmar zeh ma gadlu ma'asecha Hashem. How great are your maisim? Ma'oid amku machshavei secha. How deep, Rebbeinu Shalom, are your thoughts, your master plan? Lahagid, and ultimately there's going to come a time when lahagid we're going to be able to say ki yashar Hashem, that everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu did is yashar, tsuri v'lo yavlo sabai. He is my rock, He is my creator, Mlashon Yitzira, v'lo yavlo sabai, and there's no corruption, there's no distortion, and there's nothing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that isn't exactly bidiyuk what needed to be. Kolel hakol. Every single tiny detail, as insignificant as it seems, as frustrating, as arbitrary, nothing. That's the ar of Shabbos. That is the ar of Shabbos. Why? Because that's the ar of Olam Haba, right? And the ar of Shabbos is the ar of Olam Haba as it reveals itself in Olam Hazeh. So a person wants to know, so what is the energy of Shabbos? What is a person trying to move into, to taste, to remember, to think about on Shabbos? Hashgacha klalis, hashgacha pratis, right? But not like in the colloquial way that we speak about hashgacha pratis. When you see something incredible happens, that's what people call hashgacha pratis, right? Hashgacha pratis story is when you mamish see something bar. That's not hashgacha pratis. That's hashgacha. Or maybe if you want to say hashgacha pratis vis-a-vis the hashgacha klalis, it's hashgacha pratis. But I'd much rather speak about the hashgacha pratis, where you don't see something amazing, and adarabba, it's something annoying that happens, and it's bidiyuk what you needed. I'm not going to schlep everybody now through the whole long story about what happened to me this week in Birmingham. I told some of the chevra already, but suffice it to say, I took a trip to Birmingham. We had an event there for Aish. I was going to give a speech. Every single possible thing that could have gone wrong along this trip went wrong. I took the wrong train. I left something very expensive on the train. The event was a total disaster, Baruch Hashem. And then on the way back, I had my tickets on my phone, and I have a filter on my phone that shuts down my phone at a certain time. I couldn't access the tickets. I got scanned in. I didn't have any access to my phone. I ended up in Houston, punked. I just saw, okay, that taco was hashgacha. I had just the right amount of cash on me to get me a cab back, which I never, ever, ever have cash on me. Whatever. But every single detail, that was stam? Like that stam thing that happened to me? Everything that had to happen. That's not hashgacha pratis. That's not, you're not going to tell that to Yoel Gold or somebody to make into a whole story. It's not. But it's mamish hashgacha. That's emunah. It's very beautiful to have emunah when you can see it. But that's almost not emunah. Ve'emunas chaz ba'leilos. That's what that whole shiur was about, right? V'aniva nar nelcha ad koi, when things are vague, ad koi. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Avram Avinu that he's going to have a son and turn him into a whole nation, and then Hashem says to slaughter him. And things aren't, what's that? That's hashgacha, that's shtuyot, right? What is that? That's a steer minei ubei, the greatest contradiction and the greatest destruction of the whole world, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him that there's not going to be an Am Yisrael now, after promising him everything he promised in the Bris Ben Absarim. What is that about? Ad koi. Avram Avinu says, no. Ani v'hanar nelcha. I said this in a shiur recently. Ad koi. Koi is the 25 letters of Shema. Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. 25 letters. And ad is the large ayin of the word Shema and the large dalet of the word Echad. V'ani v'hanar nelcha. You know what it means to have emunah Shema Yisrael? Ad koi. Also eight, right? Atam eidai. That's what it means. We testify to the presence of Hashem to a world that can't see it. We're supposed to see it. We can't see it. Shabbos, we taste it a little bit. It's almost as if Shabbos gives us the time to step out of the noise of the week, which is rushed. I don't know about you. I'm sure you guys have very busy schedules. You don't have a second to breathe. A person's rushing all the time. It's work, it's family, it's responsibilities, it's whatever a person needs to do. It's like, it's heavy, life. Shabbos, you stop, you look back over the week. What are we looking back over the week? Times that you saw Hashem this week? Lav dafka. just to reflect on everything that happened. And from the standpoint of the emunah of Shabbos Kodesh, to lean into the faith that everything that happened to me this week was exactly what needed to happen to me this week. Again, I'm making a radical thing. Kolel hakol, including everything, including your bad choices, including your mistakes and my mistakes, including the ups and the downs, including the things that I wish could have been better. V'chule, v'chule, v'chule. I've said this remez before, but it's dear to me, and I say it every Friday night because it gives me chizuk. I think about it rather every Friday night. Unfortunately, I know the Chabad, which a lot of Chabad here, does not have the minhag to sing Ribono Olamim, right? Which is like a huge, it's chaval. I'm so sorry, and I'm happy that I don't have that particular minhag because it's the most beautiful tefillah in the world. Before Eishes Chayil, it's in Benchers, and it's. I've spoken about this tefillah before. It's mamish, the most gorgeous tefillah. You know, if you can't say it because whatever minhag, at least look at it, whatever, because it's just beautiful. It's mamish ma'orer the leiv in an incredible way. It comes before the Chasidim, but it's filled with the ruach of Chasidus. Whoever wrote it was plugged in, mamish plugged in. It's incredible. In that tefillah, we say, those of us who say the tefillah, like I said, it comes before Eishes Chayil, and we say, Rabbanu Shalom, help me merit to come into Shabbos, mitoich miyot avonos. Amidst, yeah, it's a song, but it comes from that. Yes, right. So that's where the words are from. Zakeini likabel Shabbosos mitoich rev simcha mitoich yeshav chavod u'mitoich miyot avonos. It's a strange lashon. I could think of better ways to come into Shabbos than miyot avonos. How about no avonos? Like, isn't that a better formulation? Should come into Shabbos. Miyot is a little avonos. And the problem is made much worse because exactly the minute that Shabbos is over, when we're davening Mariv, and in Atachonin we say Havdalah, what do we say in there? Hachel aleinu ayamim habaim l'shalom chasuchim mikol chet uminukim mikol avon. It should be absolutely clear from chet, absolutely clear from every aveira. And at the end of the week I schlep in and I say mitoch miyat avonos. What does it mean? It means that Enechanami, Matzah Shabbos, I have this belief, like I'm going to do this week fully, perfectly. I have my hasagas and my dreams, and I hope I'll be in a good mood, and I hope I'll be happy, and I'll have energy, and I hope I won't be tired. I'm talking about all my stuff, right? But everybody could apply it in their own life. And I'm going to have patience for my kids and my wife and everything, and I hope that I'll be able to be strong, and everything that I hope for the week. And then at the end of the week, you get really honest and you schlep, like limping and all battered and bruised from the whole week, and you drag yourself into Shabbos, and it's okay to say, Ribbana da al-Makayla, I'm coming to you with honesty, and I'm telling you, bless me to come into Shabbos with at least miyat avonos. With no avonos, that was a bit of a pipe dream, but I tried my best. But Shabbos is all about honesty. I've said this also in the past. It's good to repeat for the new chavra, and it's good to review anyway. That Reb Shlomo used to say this idea of why we turn around by the Chadaidi, the most beautiful thing, right? Why does a Jew turn around the Chadaidi? So classically, because that's where the sun is setting, and we turn around to face the incoming Shabbos, which is the setting of the sun, which heralds the new day, right? Which, it's a new day, and that's the day of Shabbos that's approaching from the place of the sunset, Enechanami. But Shlomo said that when a person goes to meet a president, a person goes to meet a king, if they're coming from a faraway place and they come with all their bags, you have to leave your bags in the hotel. You have to change into your nice clothing, and you walk in. To the meeting without your stuff. Like, you don't bring your things with you. You can't come with your what's it called? Trolley, your suitcase, your carry-on, right? And bring it into the Oval Office, or bring it to 10 Downing Street, or wherever you're going to meet somebody. Ostensibly chashav, I don't know, Buckingham Palace, whatever it is. But he says when it comes to Shabbos, that's not what we're saying now, ba'omek. He says when it comes to Shabbos, if you're not bringing all of your stuff with you, then you don't know what Shabbos is all about, clearly. Because Shabbos is the retrospective realization, again, from the standpoint of the emunah of Shabbos Kodesh, of Hashgacha, like we're saying, Klalius and Pratius, and let's say Pratius, Hashgacha, of the Baal Shem Tov's Hashgacha, that a leaf doesn't fall from the tree without it being guided by HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan. The simplest, most meaningless things, it's mamish part of the code. We didn't think nothing happens in an app if it wasn't coded. Who's the coder? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's coding the world. Everything is bidiyuk how it needs to be. So he says, Memela, Shabbos is only Shabbos if you bring in your whole week with you. You bring all your baggage. You bring your miyat avaynos, and myself more than miyat avaynos. You bring in all your stuff. You bring it into Shabbos. And you say, Adarabba, this is the beauty of Shabbos. That whoever keeps Shabbos, even, there's a clear reference to a person who's a sinner. Shomer Shabbos mechalaloi. Person who keeps Shabbos, mechalaloi, not to desecrate it. Says the Gemara, keeping Shabbos, even if a person is over on idol worship like the Dar of Enosh, the worst generation, mechalaloi is the letters machal loi. He's forgiven. He's forgiven. Shabbos, you enter into emunah, you enter into yearning, which has its pinnacle on Shabbos afternoon at Shas Rava D'Ravin of Shalosh Shudas, which we spoke about a few weeks ago. That yearning, but the whole Shabbos is full of yearning. It's Rebbeinu D'Amakoila, so this Olam Hazeh bangs me up a little bit, and it's not so easy. But it sets the stage for the Yerida, that's L'tzarech Aliyah of my neshama, like the Baal Tani, right, coming down into this world. But it's a Gevaldika Aliyah, and Shabbos is highlighting that. So it would be incomplete if I didn't bring all my stuff into Shabbos. Says Reb Shlomo, Shabbos is coming. You have to turn around to make sure you don't leave anything in the week. He says turning around means to say you look very good into the week. Is there any part of you that you're leaving behind? Is there anything that happened to you this week that, that was that, and now, okay, whatever, we lost a couple of things along the way and you carry on into Shabbos? No. Bring every experience with you. The emunah of Shabbos is the realization that literally everything is according to plan. Everything. Everything. Ein oid milvadai. And from here, do the best you can, mikan ula'aba. So that after a whole Shabbos full of yearning, you're ready to go into a week. Right? I intend, like Rabbi Nachman says in Asicha Beis, right? From the outset, I state my intention, declaration of intent, Mesiras Meidah. I intend to have a perfect week this week. Who am I fooling? Let's be honest, I'm a human being. Fine. But we set out into the week doing the best that we can. And Shabbos itself is looking back into the week and recognizing, that's what he's saying over here. Let's just read it again inside and then we'll take a comment. V'hakol yavinu, and we come to the understanding, bechal, it's just really say bechlal uprat, in the collective. Yeah, it's either right. It's either bechlal uprat or uveprat, or there's not supposed to be a vav there, and it should say bechal prat. You're probably right. It's probably supposed to just say bechal prat. Bechal prat mimaisa bereishis. Eichakol hayev b'hashgacha gedola. Everything is with hashgacha. Hashem is in my life. Hashem's running my life. It's all an illusion. And that's what we say in this mizmar again. I can't understand why that had to happen to me, but I believe be'emunah shlema that you're with me. And there's not 1 minute in my week that was devoid of your presence. Lahagid ki yashar Hashem. To turn what Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Pei Beis in Tinyana, in the second chelek, to turn every locus seder, terminology he uses there, things that don't go properly, to turn it into seder. To realize that what I think is b'diavad, like I say often, is Hashem's l'chatchila. Because that's what happened. And so obviously it couldn't have happened any other way. If it was supposed to happen any other way, it would have happened any other way, right? And if you're going to tell me that, no, it was really supposed to happen another way, but then it didn't, so that's a crazy, how could you even say that? Hashem made a mistake, Hashem did something that was b'diavad, Hashem, this is kacha, this is what it is. That's the Ar of Shabbos, Emunah.
Just two ha'ares, possibly. One is, along this, mute avoinos, maybe looking back, all those things, they were terrible averos, but now with retrospect,
they become miyat.
They become a bit smaller.
Beautiful.
But
Beautiful.
I always question myself.
And not just on that level, I'll just add to that, is that, like we said, machaloi. It's mamish mitoich miyot. It does away with the avoidance. Not just like, it makes it a little bit. Yeah, mamish machaloi. Beautiful, beautiful.
And the other thing is, the Welt normally turns around the right side. All pniyas should be to the right.
Yeah.
So the Welt, when they turn to say Boi Vesholem, they turn to the right. Chabad turn to the left. Bedavke to the left. Possibly, according to the Pirush now, Reb Shlomo Melez,
You're saying all the things that are din.
Because when you turn forward, you always turn to the right. The next thing, when you're turning counterclockwise, you're turning back. You're not moving on. You're going back to the past week. And that's why when it comes to Beit Shalom, we turn left and then going back.
Interesting. Very,
I'm
very
just
interesting.
wondering.
Very interesting. I
Everyone
think
turns to the right, then
it's
Chabad
fascinating.
Bedavke to the
I'll
left.
tell you that
I'm pretty sure my shiur everyone turns around that way.
they have minach Chabad.
Some as well, they turn to the left. I think left
I'd
circle.
like to see that.
It doesn't
Yeah.
go full circle.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. I turn to the right, Dafka, for the reason, like you said, b'chol pniyas shata pa'inei, you turn to the right.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
But I'll add it also to that another nekuda, where the left is always associated with din, gevura, hester. So it fits with this Torah very nicely, is that it's not just that you're turning back, but you're turning into those experiences. You're turning into gevura. You're turning into the moments of concealment and din, and you're looking there. You're looking there. You bedikas chametz, and you find it, and then you bring it into the fire of Shabbos. You bring it into the fire. Unreal. Okay, let's go weiter. Okay, so v'asagozu misgalis kasher ba Shabbos. This revelation is revealed in the Jew's heart and mind when Shabbos arrives. The Jew sees that every single thing that the person thought, even that they thought, that they planned, that happened during the week, is part of the wondrous mystery of Hashem's master plan. Like we said, on each and every Shabbos is the kedusha, is the ar of mamish of olam haba that's revealing itself in that day. When our souls are me'idin, right, aid, right, are being made on the achdus and the emunah of Hashem, chiddush ha'olam, which we're learning Sunday night, also the same idea, right? We spoke about Chanukah, right? It's the chiddush of the world. He's actually going to get to that. We're going to see that next week. That that's the primary R of Shabbos, like we've been speaking now for the last 20 minutes about this, that shines into this worldliness. That there's nothing but Hashem. That's the R of Shabbos. Ein oid milvadai. And everything that a person tries to understand, that which is the question of evil, right? How could it be that the Rishayim of the world, there's no room for a question like that. You're not going to understand that. We're just human beings. We're limited. It's so important that even whatever we talk about like we know, you always have to preface it by saying, I don't know anything. Somebody asked me earlier in Hasmo, one of the boys afterwards, speaking of you, wanted to know about Olam Haba. I said, I don't know. I could tell you what other people said, but they didn't either know. Like, no one knows. We can say different theories, things, unless a Navi Mamish knows. No one knows what it's going to be like. Nobody's been there and back to tell us how it is. Now, there are different approaches. There's the Rambam, there's the Ramban, there's this, that. But a shtickle humility, you know what I'm saying? I'm just human. I Pasha don't know. And it's okay to say that. It's very beautiful to say that because it's very honest. And I found that students respect you more when you say you don't know than when you pretend to know. Because it gives them a good feeling. They say, Gevalt, good, we're in the same boat. And it's amazing because it's really true. We don't really know much. So that's so important. Ish bar lo yeda.
You say that.
Sorry
Sorry for interrupting you, but you say that, and that's true. But one would possibly argue is that you don't know that there's an Eibishter here either in this world either.
Remember, we were learning about that. Koyach hamadame.
Yeah.
I know it's radical. It's really radical.
But we're saying we're humble with not knowing what's in the world to come.
This is
But
called.
we have a certain sense of confidence that we do know
Also,
what's going.
also humility. But it doesn't take away from our confidence. Because there's two things. There's emes, the emuna kol zos. Emuna is that realm which is beyond our seichel. But there is something called emes, which using our hearts and our minds, we can get to the best approximation of, and we should be able to, meaning you should be able to defend why you're at where you're at. But that doesn't mean that a person knows what Hashem is. It's emunah. I have no idea what Hashem is. Theories, concepts, words, terminologies. Hopefully I know enough about why I believe what I believe to be able to support that and to explain to a person why this is my condition. But I can't speak about the truth. I don't know what the truth is. I speak about the best approximation of the truth that's capable of a human being. That's called emes. Once you identified, I consider it like a pool with diving boards. Many different diving boards. There are billions of ways. Remember, this world is chalom. I can interpret it millions of ways. Why do I choose to interpret it this way? Because using my brain and using my heart, those two things in tandem, I personally have come to identify based on many factors, the Messiah, etc. That's certainly a big part of it, but also a person's own, Elekenu, Velekavesenu, both, that this diving board is the most reasonable of the diving boards. That's called emes. And then you jump a couple of times and you dance a little Breslover dance over there on the diving board and you jump into Emunah. But like I like to say, once you splash into the pool of Emunah, splashes of that Emunah water have to splash up onto the diving board of emes, just to pepper it and salt it and spice it up with a little bit humility and wonder. And that's good. That's okay. And it doesn't take away from your conviction of emes. It just reminds you that you're human and that you're not expected to proclaim absolute knowledge, because it's sheker v'chazav. Nobody has absolute knowledge. And that's called bechira. Bechira would not be possible all the while that it was taka possible for a Jew to stand up and say, no, this is the truth. If it was that simple, trust me, the whole world would have already been mitukan. There's a chalal apano, make no mistake about it. There is a vacant space. There are questions that are not answerable. Rabbi Nachman's famous Torah Samach Dalet, which you quote a lot, actually. No, you're quoting Samach Hey. You're quoting Samach Hey with the squinting is Samach Hey. But Samach Dalet is the Torah of the Chalal Panei, Rabbi Nachman's, and that's why he's so relatable, because he'll just come right out there and tell you, like, there are going to be doubts that are not resolvable. I'm not going to pretend to you that we have all the answers. We don't. To some people, that's, oh no, what's going to be? Our kids are going to fall off if we don't pretend like if we don't. And I found that it's punkt fakert. I found that if you're honest with yourself and with others, don't we say honesty is the best policy? This is honesty. And there's no reason for dramatics, and there's no reason for saying, oh my gosh, my whole faith just collapsed. No. It just frames it in a much broader framework that doesn't, on the practical level, impact how much I believe in this thing. Because again, from the standpoint of what a human being can come to in approximating the truth, this is the closest we can get. And on a relative scale, this is truth. And it's more true than Christianity because of ABCD. And it's more true than Buddhism because of EFG and whatever. So it doesn't change anything practically. What it changes is the energy. A person is more humble. A person's more open. A person's more in a state of wonder, rather than just like, oh, it's pashut, it's pashut, but nothing's pashut. Nothing's pashut. This world is a mystery. It's my favorite word, mystery. Mystery, mystery, mystery. It's a very different approach.
Yeah. You were saying about Rabbi Nachman would say sometimes he does things he doesn't know, and yet that in itself was a bit of a wonder to some people. That what do you mean you don't know? Is that when my first child was born? Before my first child was born, my wife was bleeding. Suddenly 4 weeks beforehand, and we were knew about it. Kids before we panicked, went to the hospital, and they put you on all the machines and everything. And the situation was calm, and I said to the doctor, I said, okay, and where's the blood coming from? And he looked at me, he said, we don't know. And I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean you don't know? He's like, I have no idea, it could be many things, but I've got no idea. The placenta, we pull it, I've got no idea what's going on. He's like, well, what I know is that the situation is stable, so we're comfortable, the bleeding has stopped, the baby's fine, everything's okay, so we're not. And I could not, at that time, I couldn't get I'm like, you're a doctor, of course you know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? And he's like, we don't know. Well,
We had a very, very similar experience with a chaver who knows. So we had a baby who was born at 26 weeks, right, 6 months. So we know that a little bit, and that experience. Amichai Eliyahu, Hashem, he's doing so well, Baruch Hashem. And I remember having the same experience with doctors. It was revelatory. Like, to me, it was less about the doctors not knowing and about how complicated the body is, that with all of our technological advancements, we're still super far from really figuring this thing out. It's like, it's incredible. But yes, you see how little, and it wasn't just how little they know, it was how little they could predict. That was another nukuda. They could not tell us what would happen tomorrow. And these are these are the top of the top people who trained for years and years and years and years. And the uncertainty factor was so beautiful. I did a Facebook post a number of years ago before a very consequential presidential election. And everybody's busy, this one, that one, as American elections are very boisterous and lively. And Jews are always boisterous and lively, so when you put the two things together, it's like an explosion. And I just did a Facebook post like a half hour before voting started, like voting night and the stuff. And I said, Chevra, whatever side you're on, whoever you're supporting, whoever you think will win, whatever, can we just sit in the humility of this moment? That there's not one human being on the planet who knows what the outcome's going to be. People can have theories. Theories were wrong, are wrong, will always be wrong. Some will be right, many will be wrong. No one knows. What a beautiful moment. Because we're always holding on to the illusion of concrete knowledge, but it's an ego thing. Because then you have the illusion of being in control, but you're not in control. We don't know anything. I sometimes say also in shiur, you've heard this from me in the past, if a person would make a cheshbon, let's say, because now we're talking about a week, right? What percentage of the week contained of things that you knew and planned for, and what percentage of the week, in terms of, I'm talking small things, something that delayed you for 5 minutes, you forgot the keys in the house, you have to go back inside. Small things, what percentage are things that you b'chlal never could have planned for? And I would argue that it's like 80-20, 70-30, not 60-40. It's even more than that. How many things happen that you cannot account for? You could have a good day in school, a bad day in school. You came home, you had to be Isaac in that you didn't know. How many things that are going on all the time in your life? And it's on the one hand, people get very nervous when you start pointing this out. But from the standpoint of emunah, it's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a humble thing. You revel in it. You bask in it. Gewalt. I'm just a tiny little speck of earth. Anochi afar ve'efer. Tolas v'lo ish. Anachnu ma. What enosh kisizgarenu. What more humble, beautiful moment is there than that? I don't want to know anything. Like you said, Rebecca, whatever I know, I want it to bring me to realize how little I know. And when I'm on my deathbed at 119 years old, Be'ezus Hashem, all of us, I want to know the least that I ever knew in my whole life. I don't want to die having resolved anything. I want to die in a state of total wonder and anticipation.
It's okay. We don't have to be at the deathbed. We could continue.
Yeah. Yes, that also, Bila Mavas Lanetzach. But I want, having experienced a whole life, to have all the more questions. Now again, doesn't mean that along the journey I won't have resolved questions. I'll have figured a lot of stuff out, and Baruch Hashem until now, I feel like I've figured things out, and I'm constantly seeking and constantly refining, and hopefully using my brain and my heart to navigate and to identify, okay, this is true, this is less true, this is more true, this is more reasonable, and figuring things out. But it just opens up more questions, more questions, more questions, more questions. You double click on that and it leads you to 5 more links, and you double click on those, and there's so much to learn. And so at the end of a person's life, I would like to believe that the Vilna Gaon, whatever, the Tzaddik El Yoinim, who had all the Baal Shem and Baal Tanya and everybody, that at the end, they had more questions than ever. And again, what the chiddush that we're saying now is that didn't cause them to doubt. It wasn't like it was a pegam and emunah. That's what gave them the ability to have real emunah. So then why were they Yidden? Maybe they should have been something else, because you got to be something. So Hashem gave you a brain, so figure it out, right? But because your brain figured out and identified what for you is the appropriate path, that doesn't mean that now you know absolute truth. And even in accordance with what you do know and have used your rational brain to be able to identify, in accordance with all the different things that we have to rely on, this that we believe that Yiddishkeit is the emes, that doesn't mean that within Yiddishkeit you know what we're talking about. We'll never know what Hashem is. We'll never know what a malach is. You can talk about malachim, but you can even learn a lot about malachim. There's a difference between the map and the territory. There's the difference between the map and the territory. So we learn stuff our whole life. It's the map. But we won't have been there. Now, there are some tzaddikim that have been there, and they can communicate to us. Okay, it's still secondhand. It's not the same thing as you experiencing something. So we have to be very careful when we talk, how we talk about things. It should be with a sense of honesty. And I think that's a good thing. So here we're speaking about Olam Haba. So we don't know what Olam Haba is, right? But we don't understand anything in this world. It's not speaking about an idiot. It's not speaking about a fool. We're talking about the greatest Goyin and Talmud Chacham. That in accordance with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mind, like the Gemara tells us, in Seichel, in Tvuna, right, all the different things that a person's brain cannot even begin to compare with the infinite knowledge of Hashem. Kol sichloi hu ka'ayin ve'efes mamish. A person says pshat in the Gemara. You know that pshat is emes? Do you know that this pshat is emes? You can tell that HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually would look at this and says, this is the emes? No, you never will. Why do we say that it's the psak? Because again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a mind. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us klali psak, and in accordance with working this system, this is what we came out with. But who's going to say that this is the, just to bring for the Muslims again, it's good. It's going to elevate some sparks. It's also good. They have a very beautiful minhag. Very beautiful anhaga. They have a few beautiful anhagas, but this is a beautiful anhaga. If you look at the end of any, hopefully not extremist, but fatwas, right, which is essentially like a psak, right, a psak halacha, right, in accordance with their very, very complicated set of law, Sharia law, they write the psak. And you know what they say at the very, very end? Maybe I may have mentioned this in the past. They say this very beautiful line. They say, and Allah knows best. It's a very beautiful thing.
We say lo b'shamayim.
Huh?
We say lo b'shamayim.
That's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu entrusted in Adra, but that's why. That's the only reason why we could make a psak in the first place. But if a person, so maybe it won't apply, let's say, to our Piskei Halacha per se from that standpoint. But imagine if, after saying whatever you say with as much conviction as you say it, and then you finish and you say, and Hashem knows best. Because I again, this is what nirali. So, and we have our version of that. Obviously, we don't have to go there. We have. That's how they say it. But hopefully, every psak begins lefi aniyas daiti. What does that mean, lefi aniyas daiti? You're the biggest Talmud Chacham in the world. You say lefi aniyas daiti. If you don't believe what you're about to say, so don't say it. And if you do believe it, so what's this lefi aniyas daiti business? Because we're human beings, tamid human beings. And that means that there's a sense of humility that we ought to carry with us. No matter what, all the time.
Or we talk to say that Hashem is in help of the judges. So the koyach that they have to reach the din emes is because Hashem is amongst them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Nitza Abba Adas Kel, right? The pasuk. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there guiding the process. But without that, we wouldn't be able to say anything ever. We mamish don't know. And I know how jarring this is. I know it's jarring because I everything I say is because I've experienced it in my own journey of trying to find the truth. I'm just sharing, like in real time, what I myself am going through as a human being that wants the truth. I'm not preaching. I'm just trying to explain that I'm a human being trying to figure out the best way to live. And as I discover certain things that have been helpful for me, I try to share them for other people. It wasn't easy for me when I started realizing some of these things. It was a huge shvira to my emunah. I didn't have anybody framing it for me the way that I'm framing it for you now. It occurred to me one day that the word faith is just another way of saying opinion. And it blew my mind. But what faith? You mean opinion? You believe in the Torah. You mean your opinion, the Torah is real. You were at Har Sinai, you saw it, you know, so like you start to think about things in life. All the different things that we utilize to formulate any opinion, whatever piece of information. And this is what's going on in the world now with fake news and disinformation, misinformation, AI, things that are distorted and bechlal lo'hayav le'nivra. And on the one hand, it's incredibly destabilizing. On the one hand, it's like, how do you function? How do you know what to believe? Especially the older generations, let's say, who are mamish, not with the social media or whatever. You know, people get a link, and they just, because they come from a generation where like it's in the news, like it's in, and adrabah, to me, if it's in the news, that's the biggest sign that it's sheker v'chazam. Like I'm so much less likely to believe something that's an official news story than I am today on Twitter, you know, which Baruch Hashem I'm not on, but if I happen to see something that was sent as a... So on the one hand, it's destabilizing because you don't know what to believe anymore. But I believe that it's part and parcel of the R of the Geula, which I'm biased to believe, it's my opinion, that everything is part and parcel of the unfolding of the Geula. Because I think that Adarabah, it's coming to help us challenge our assumptions and step into humility, to really start to question, how do I know what I know? This is very deep.
Well,
This is very, very deep.
The last 2,000 years are the years
Emes
of
Mashiach, yes. So I believe that this is good, even though it's so bad. But at the same time, there's a positive element there. And it's scary, but it's training us how to step out of katnus, which is our very, very limited frameworks, and begin to open up to godless, to different experiences that different human beings are having, different cultures, different ways of thinking, different ways of feeling, different perspectives. It can be very, very scary to start thinking about different perspectives because we'd like to split the whole world into good and evil, and everybody who splits the world into good and evil is always on the good side, right? Nazis included. We love to do that all the time. What do you think, the Nazis thought that they were evil? I guarantee you the Nazis believed that they were fighting the good fight, as did every single menace to every society. You think the communists and the Marxists and the Bundists and everybody was fighting for good. So we're in this very, very interesting space now in the world, where now, if we're willing, we can get as educated as we possibly can to really start to be makshiv, to hear where other people are coming from, what their experiences are. That doesn't mean that there's not emes and sheker anymore, but it means that emes is a lot more gray than we'd like to think. Because in the comfort space, we want everything to be black and white because it's so easy, and then you don't have to think about anything, you don't have to grapple with anything, and it's pasha. This is emes, this is sheker, and you carry on. But a little bit, humanity grows up, and you start seeing the world in a different way, and it's painful. But to me, it's a very worthy price to pay for the emes. Because Chosamai Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the truth. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the emes. Black and white simplistic thinking might look nice on the surface, It might be something easier to explain to your child. It might be something that makes you sleep better at night. Doesn't mean God is there. And I want God. I don't want an easy life. I want Hashem should give me an easy life. But I want the truth. It's like that famous scene from the movie. The truth, you can't handle the truth. I know I can't, but I want it anyway. Even though I can never have the truth. But I can have the closest approximation to the truth. Which, it turns out, is very complicated. Very complicated. Maybe even complicated midai. To the point where anyway it brings me back to the humility of saying, I know what I can grasp. And from that place, I've seen enough to believe what I believe firmly with humility. You see? So it's not a stira. It's not that opening up challenges the certainty that I feel. It frames the certainty in a larger framework. That brings me to bittul. That brings me to humility. That brings me to a place of far greater patience with other people, compassion for other people, willingness to listen to other people. The unlikelihood of me getting so worked up and about circumstances, situations, other people's opinions, and so on. Listen, even though again, from the standpoint of my truth, you fight for that. But it's all within a broader engender of knowing that the process is unfolding exactly how it needs to unfold. And that's not a stira to all the fight in the world. Because your fight, in your perspective, is part of that process. You chab? So it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you realize that there's a place for everybody, so then you give it up and you say, okay, everything's everything. No, there's a place for everybody believing that their way is the only way. Right? And fighting for it. Then, when all these different ways coalesce, and each one is pushing and pulling, and so then it's like two legs, leg, and then things mitkadem, things proceed, things progress, history unfolds. And this dialectic process, right, of first to one side, then the other side, and then to the middle, and then within that middle, one side, other side, middle. This is the spheres, right? Keser, Chachma, Bina, and then Das, and then, or let's say Chachma, Gvura, and then Tiferes, and Netzach, Hod, Yisai. It's fractal, right? It's greater birurim. And if you notice, in as much as this system of the spheres is literally the blueprint for all of existence, then this is the system of progress, where two extremes start to figure out that actually it's somewhere in the middle. And the chevra that we're fighting all the time for one side and one side alone, and the chevra that we're fighting for the other side, both needed to fight that fight, and in their pushing and pulling against each other, greatest example is Hasidim and Litvaks, right? The greatest example. So the Mittler Rebbe said, right, that without the Vilna Gaon and Hasidus, who knows what would have happened? And without Hasidus, forget about Yiddishkeit, And in the push and pull, you come to something of a shiluv. You come to something of a balance. And then within that, there's going to be birurim. Come to another balance. And within that, come to another balance. And you get closer and closer and closer to the emes. Okay, it's totally off topic, but it's so important. I think it's.
So Yossi Jacobson was saying this week that someone came over to him and said to him that he doesn't believe in God. Yossi was saying, so interesting, he says, the people who say they don't believe in God actually have more emunah than the people who do believe in God. So to think that this whole thing is an accident, he says, to think that your hands and the blood and the cells and the billion different things going on in your body and everything else,
a greater leap of faith.
Is because he says the amount of money you need to believe that isn't anything, that's all an accident, is more than to believe that everything was still not by Mishloim.
It's sweet, but it should also be in the context of remembering that both are emunas. Meaning, he doesn't know, but you don't either know. Bechira is always there. It's a chalal hapanui, this world. It's a vacant space.
People who believe in God say they do not believe in God. You have agnostics who say, who are unsure, they're happy to be persuaded either way. The people who don't believe, they generally don't believe. They believe that it's evolution. And
Yeah, but they do believe.
Yeah, that's what they believe.
Because that's what they believe. They saw evolution unfold. They know that to be absolutely 1 billion % true.
Yeah.
They know it.
I mean, in our world they do. In the same world,
we call that an opinion. Right? When someone knows something in their own world and it's not in other people's world, then it's called an opinion. This is a very it's mamash our Chanukah shiur that we're giving. It's a very powerful tool to use. When you can get people around to this way of thinking that actually no one knows anything, and in as much as you're making an existential assertion about reality, that's your faith. This is my faith. All of a sudden, you're ready to equal the playing field. Otherwise, they'll come at you like you're an idiot who believes in something and I know something. And you tell them, no, actually, I don't say that I know, but neither do you.
But at some point, scientific knowledge, I can't say I'm holding this paper up. I think it's when I let go, it's going to drop down to the table.
Sure.
That's an opinion.
No.
Right?
No, that for sure. That's for sure true. But that's different from, and this is really what we're doing on Sunday night, that's different from interpreting the existential nature of reality. Right? So for example, I can tell a person that if I hold this here and I drop it, it will fall. Right? And that's something that's true for everyone. What's the meaning of that? No one knows. I can come up with a whole theory about how because the Afar is Malchus and Malchus attracts everything and that thing, and I can come up with a theory. He can come up with another theory or say that there's no theory. That's his opinion. That's his opinion. Meaning to assert that there's absolutely no meaning in this, that something that happened is an opinion. For me to assert that no, that mamish has meaning is also an opinion. But I would have to be founded on something. And hopefully we are. You should be able to articulate. Every teenager in high school should be able to articulate why they're Jewish. And it should be deeper than just the fact that they happen to be brought up in an Orthodox community and they're in an Orthodox school. They should be able to support and defend their faith. And if they can't, how deep do you think their faith is going to be? Because they're carrying something that their dad told them, because his dad told him, because his dad told him.
My father.
It's nice on one level, but that's Elikei Avosenu. Elikenu. This is what we're missing, in addition to many other things. I think. I don't know for sure, but it is an opinion, but it's founded on experience and rationality. That's it. It changes the whole thing.
My father once got out with my shiur. I don't believe in God. I'm sorry, I don't believe in. I know there is God, but
he had a very strong opinion. Yeah. I want to make sure I'm being clear here. I want to clarify that this doesn't change a thing with regard to everything that we believed and everything. It just frames it differently in a way that's humbler, in a way that's more open to the world, in a way that's more open to the truth, and in a way that reminds us that the essence of humility, that the essence of emunah is really humility. And this all, just to bring it back, and then we'll finish, this all brings it back to Shabbos. This is what Shabbos means. Derech emunah bacharti. I am choosing, it goes back to what we said about the koyach hamadame. I am choosing to believe that the world was created. I'm choosing that. I am choosing to believe in this olam of tohu v'vohu, where you could say any shtus you like, and you can believe anything you want. I'm choosing to believe, as I turn around for Rabbi B'Shalom, that every single thing that happened to me this week was not only from Hashem, it was for the good, and it couldn't have been better. It couldn't have been better. That's this whole controversy, with the song Od Yoter Tov. And it could have been better, could it not have been better? Is it a kfir to say that it could be better? But there's a stira between the mashmas of the chorus and the mashmas of the stanza, because in the stanza it says Hashem it's always rak tov. So then what does it mean Od Yoter Tov? Could there be even better within best? Okay, so this is really super important for all the poskim in Eretz Yisrael to be sitting and this, because this is the worst thing, and this is the most important issue in Klal Yisrael. They've solved everything else. So who cares? That's not the point, whether it could be better, can't be better. It was exactly what I needed. And I'm choosing to believe that. And that's the world that I operate in. According to my narrative, according to my dream for humanity, that's only going to be manifest if humans think the way that we think, that the world has meaning. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because if everybody tomorrow just decided that this world is absolutely meaningless and has no purpose, and everybody really came to believe, have the opinion that, Olam Kiman Haganayeg, and like there's no hope for any humanity, and there's no goodness, and there's no, people are fundamentally evil and original sin, and there's no fixing and whatever, then guess what? This world's going to be hell. It just will be. So my emunah isn't just arbitrarily hanging out in the middle of the air. My emunah is such that it's part of a vision that is dependent on this way of thinking. Because only this way of thinking will encourage other people to think this way. And when they think this way, then taka, we could come to a world that's bursting with godliness. And the godliness will memela be revealed. Because we interpreted the dream that way, so the dream will be that way. If we interpret the dream otherwise, the dream will be otherwise. This is something very deep.
This is what you were saying in the Lamed Bovshir. If a person understands everything all the time, that's not emunah. And not understanding everything, that is what gives you access to use your emunah.
Emunah is only possible when you don't understand everything.
Right.
And you don't know.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. It's mamish, the human experience. That's why we were sent into this realm of Bechira. To choose. If we could know, then we would be angels and the whole thing would collapse. God doesn't need this world.
Yeah, but I struggle a lot with that particular point a lot. And a lot of people use it. I don't know if it's a scapegoat or it's convenient. People say, but we're human, so we're entitled to make mistakes, or God doesn't expect us to be angels. Where does that license go to? Like, how much license do we have to not live a life the way we're supposed to live a life, and hide behind the fact that we're humans, so we're expected to make mistakes?
This was
poor judgment, or
This was a huge debate. The Nefesh HaChaim, by and large, and the Vilna Gaon, you'd say, pushed back against the Baal Shem for fear that if we took this route, it would open the door and people could live how they want to live. The Baal Shem believed strongly enough in the essential goodness of the Jewish soul that, on the contrary, if we would reveal this reality to people, the result would be that they would be able to give themselves strength when inevitably they encountered challenge, difficulty, and failure, despite their best efforts, that you would actually end up encouraging them in such a way because they wouldn't be under the impression that the first second that they make a mistake as a teenager, the whole life is over, like many of our teenagers make a mistake. So the question was, and again, neither of them knew, right? The question, they had an opinion. The Vilna Gaon had an opinion, Baal Shem Tov had an opinion. Both of them were trying to preserve against the potential risk at the extreme of the other position. Meaning, the Nefesh HaChaim and the Tanya are almost identical svarim. They're both somewhere like sort of in the middle, where they agree on almost everything. Where they disagree is on their contrasting fear. The Baal Shem was worried that if we go to the Nefesh HaChaim's extreme, and we either push people, and we never talk about the way that Hashem is present in everything and everywhere and so on, you're going to end up with a soulless, stale Judaism that's completely detached from real feeling and emotion. And that was the greater risk. And then Nefesh HaChaim felt that if we tell everybody that Eino Milvada and Hashem is in everything and every mistake that you make, and Hashem is always next to you, and you could just hold on to Him, and you can do tshuva in a second, and tshuva is real, v'chulei. So then, license to kill, like license to steal.
It's like we started. We end the week with Miyut Avonos, but we got to start with Atachon and Anton.
So what does that mean? This is perfect. So it means that the truth is both. You need both. And Reb Nosson makes this point again and again and again in Likutei Halachos, and that's why Breslov is particularly unique in this element of balance, of synthesis. Reb Nosson says, before the chait, that's right. And what's amazing is that from this perspective, but a yid has to be sincere. Again, ultimately, a person's going to have bechira. It's up to you to choose. But a person who's really davuk to the Baal Shem and doesn't just pick up this message and cherry pick it out of the collective of all the Baal Shem Tov's teachings. If a person mamish is a student of the Baal Shem Tov, they're not going to want to utilize this as a way out, because averos are so unattractive to such a person, in contrast to the kind of life that the Baal Shem Tov wanted a person to live and was attempting to give a person access to. This is not. This is not,
It's going to be done the chasvos yourself.
It has to be both.
Yeah.
There's a lechatchila, and lechatchila is, like Rav Nassim says, the Yetzer Hara tries to make the chet small, and lechatchila you have to be magdal the chet. Like, no, this is the worst thing in the world. I'm going to lose all my olam haba. I'm going to lose a connection to Hashem. I'm going to lose everything. B'diavad, post, a person that the Yetzer Hara wants to make the chet very, very big, and you have to make the chet very small. That b'diavad, there is no b'diavad. B'diavad for you, l'chatchila for Hashem. And it's a very subtle dance, but it's precisely what we were saying about emes, because it turns out that the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's not all like the Baal Shem, right? Where, like, in beginning and ends, everything's okay, obviously, but it's not either all like the Gra, where on both ends of it, it's, you're going to burn in hell forever.
Saying it's not.
It's both.
I understand that approach, but I'm sure the people who follow the Gra would disagree. The people who follow the Baal Shem and Chassidus would say no.
So what's beautiful is that at this point in history, there's been such an exchange of sentiments that at this point you're going to be hard pressed to find a Chassid who says you can just do it whatever you want, and that's Ratzon Hashem. Nobody thinks that way, and you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody who says that tshuva, again, it's not even, by the way, we're talking like the Baal Shem and the Gra, it's Chazal. Chazal say about tshuva that a person does tshuva me'avada, averos turn into mitzvahs. They weren't scared of saying that. Isn't that giving license to people? Isn't the very concept of tshuva giving license to people? Wouldn't it be better for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come out straight in the Torah and say, you do an avera, there's no hope for you. It's gavalt. Nobody would ever do an avera. Obviously, that's not the cheshbon.
It's that fine line, as you say.
Fine line.
So I love that.
Fine line.
The analogy of when you buy a pack of pencils and it's got the rubber at the top. They know you're making a mistake before you even start drawing. They already
Shuva kadma la'olam. Shuva kadma la'olam. The main thing of Yiddishkeit is fine line, which is another word for nuance, not extremism. Anything that's extreme is not in the spirit of Yisrael Saba. It's not in the spirit of our Messiah.
But we can't elevate.
Do you know why? Do you know why?
Sorry.
Do you know why? That anything that's extreme is not in the derech of our Messiah? Because Yaakov Avinu, from the standpoint of Pneumius, is an energy of synthesis. We don't come from Avram Avinu alone. We don't come from Yitzchak Avinu alone. We are descendants of the middle. Kol shehi tiferes la'iseh, tiferes le'min adam. Tiferes is the harmony, is the balanced way. Now, every person, L'fi Shner Sheshama, is going to end up in different places on the spectrum of synthesis. But a person has to cultivate a das of synthesis. And what that means, bepoyol, humility. Humility, sensitivity, nuance, gentleness. Okay, didn't get nearly as far as I wanted to get, but we did the first opening, and next week we'll carry on. It's an incredible piece. I ended up speaking about all this other stuff that I didn't intend to speak about, but that's also Ashkacha, that's also Min HaShamayim, it's also useful. And next week we'll carry on from the second column.
Melech Chai V'Kayah Al Kol Neshima